Claim your free AirPods today by clicking the first link in the description down below.
r/AskReddit. What's a parenting method that you believe messes up kids? Comparing your kid to other children. Why can't you be more like your cousin? Way to build their confidence. A good reply to that is, why can't you be like my aunt/uncle? I wish I would have thought of this 25 years ago. I took care of you for 17 years. You owe me. My fiance's mom has this mindset. Calls for money or place to stay while repeating that statement. This is the excuse my dad gave when I caught him stealing from me. I don't know how many thousands he got from me before I caught him and decided he shouldn't have my bank card for an emergency. This so ducking much. Couple weeks ago I lent my dad my bank card to get some groceries. Turns out he withdrew $300 without telling me, and I had to ask him. Probably took over $1,000 in loans he swore he would pay back. Last time I refused to shell out, he threw a chair at a wall and pushed me. Told myself that if it ever came to that one more time I'd move out and never look back. I'm too soft for my own good. Slashy, thanks for all the feedback everyone. Really wasn't expecting this many replies. Parents who never give their kids space or trust them at all. I had a teacher who would say how she'd monitor her kid's cell phone and keep him on a pretty tight leash, albeit in a few years. The kid is currently 4. I don't think I would have grown up to love my parents and be a respectful functioning adult if my parents didn't trust me and give me a little bit of space. Can relate. My mom has read my diary, checked my phone, read my scraps on Orkut, and so now I have trust issues. I can't even write my own thoughts because she might find out that I feel things that she can't. My mom always said if she found a journal of mine she would read it. I had a journal she hadn't found. I started writing in simple ciphers, Caesar shift, Baconian stenography, Playfair, etc. I never wrote out a key. I always did it in my head to avoid leaving hints. When I wanted to share something, I would use the Baconian cipher's binary encoding and encrypt it with 5-bit RSA, which, by the way, is a rich to do in your head. There's a reason we usually relegate that task to computers. I developed a knack for taking one look at a number and being able to instantly say if it was prime or not. That was middle school. I'm now in grad school studying cryptography. So I guess you could say it had some positive influence, though certainly not the intended one. When parents talk about their kids right in front of them about how they are bad, or don't listen or like to give you a hard time, this gives the child a story about themselves that they are a bad child. This leads to more negative behavior because you are giving the child permission to behave that way. It's who they are now. Also, when parents complain that their child is giving them a hard time, what they should say is that my child is having a hard time. Everyone gets frustrated being a parent, but this type of reaction is self-sabotaging. Yeah. I think I was a reasonable kid right up until a narrative emerged in my family that I was selfish and difficult. After that, it didn't really matter what I did, the idea was out there. So anything I did would be mashed into that particular mold. Hell, I've lived out of their home for nearly 6 years now, and they still speak of me as if I'm a homeless drug addict who exists purely to spite them. Yep. Doesn't matter what you do, your accomplishments will be overlooked and your shortcomings highlighted. Everything must fit the ducking mold that you are selfish and difficult. And some parents will do everything in their power to consciously forget you are capable of being or doing anything else that doesn't fit their mold. My parents used to constantly talk about how great life would have been if I wasn't born. Yeah. Because you ducking floated down from the sky and asked them to have unprotected eggs. So that's where babies come from? Holding children to a higher standard than the adults in the household. My dad could scream, throw things, sometimes at us, break things, sometimes our things, etc. It would usually be our fault or he would laugh it off as normal dad behavior. But if one of us acted that way, there was hell to pay. He basically got to throw tantrums like a child because it was his house and he was entitled. But if we the children did that, we would be punished. Sometimes physically threatened, ridiculed, etc. That was my dad. And all my mother did was say let it go and keep on enabling him and allowed him to do that. Ugh. My mother did the same thing. One time my dad screamed at my brother and pushed him into the refrigerator hard enough that I could feel the house shake from upstairs. We were all ordered to stay in our rooms. This was all because my brother was eating a chicken salad sandwich before dinner. My dad got mad at him and asked him, "What are you doing?" My brother said, "What does it look like?" Then my dad shoved him and yelled about eating before dinner in my brother's tone. Yeah, it was rude for my brother to say that. But it's a relatively minor infraction and not like my brother at all. I remember crying myself to sleep. When my mom got home, she had us come out of our rooms one at a time to get our version of the story. But she never did or said anything. No dinner that night. I still cry when I think about it because my big brother was and is so gentle, polite, introverted, and well behaved. He hardly ever cried, but I can still hear him crying in his room saying to himself, "I didn't know. I didn't know." I get so furious when I think about it. Not letting kids ever say no. Obviously. There are certain things parents should make their kids do. Eating some fruits and vegetables. Going to school. Getting vaccinations. etc. But when you never let them say no, particularly to things like hugging an older relative, don't be surprised to find a teenager and an adult who has a really hard time saying no to things they don't want to do. Damn, I'm handing these upvotes out like candy. Well, have one yourself, good sir. Exposure to different foods. If you let your kid eat the same thing every meal every day, then don't act surprised when he/she grows up and is exceptionally picky. My parents did this awesome thing while my brother and I were growing up. Whenever they cooked something that one of us wasn't interested in, they gave us a small bit of it and called it a no thank you helping. I know. Cheesy. But it worked. Basically that meant you try it. And if you don't like it, you can just say so and you aren't forced to eat it. And if you do like it, there's plenty more where that came from. I tried so many foods this way, only rarely finding something I didn't like. Also, side note, I developed a digestive illness as an adult. As somebody with many restrictions on my diet, people who can eat things but refuse make me very angry. Edit to clarify. Copied from a comment I wrote below. I guess I don't care what people eat so much as I care when they complain about it. If that makes sense. Like if you have sensitivities or whatever, that's fine. But it's on you to let people know beforehand. Expecting them to have something you'll eat without them knowing is itty. And I have absolutely seen people take that attitude. It just sucks because I have a real illness, and when people complain about the food at a restaurant just because they don't like every other ingredient, it gets to me. Now, that's also not to say that texture sensitivities aren't a real thing. I'm certain they are. But annoying people are also a real thing. Haha. I also will admit to being this friend every now and again due to an illness. But it sucks when a friend group wants to go out and has to cater to a friend who doesn't like anything. But I do see where you're coming from. And maybe I should care less. It's just one of those things that gets under my skin. TL. Doctor, I didn't mean you have to like everything you eat. But I did mean that it's rude to complain and hold other people accountable for your pickiness and expect them to have food for you without telling them. I do this with my daughter. I ask her to try something and she usually will because there's no penalty for not liking it. She doesn't make a big production about it. She just politely puts the food into her napkin and nicely states she did not care for it. I then praise her for trying it. My next goal is to get her to like Indian food. Not giving a child boundaries. I've never physically punished my 4 children. But they had boundaries that they crossed at their peril. They are now 4 happy, healthy, respectful, generous and kind adults. They had their moments. But compared to some kids, they didn't cause us that much grief. We are proud of them. I mean, some parents now just let their young children run around wherever they like and cause problems. And the parents think it's just cute. It's crazy. Edit, formatting and stuff. My cousin is constantly posting on Facebook what her young kids are doing. How well behaved they are. Showing them playing and smiling. Telling everyone about their morning cuddles. etc, really annoying to begin with. Basically showing them as perfect angels. My wife used to get upset at this because our kids would sometimes act up at bedtime. Be naughty at the dinner table. Normal kid things really. They were generally well behaved. She would wonder why our kids aren't little cherubs too. But when we get together at family occasions, our kids are good as gold. My cousin's kids are horrid little bastards. Running around, knocking over drinks, trashing tables and getting under everyone's feet. She does next to nothing to prevent it. Just laughs it off. Gives them something of a warning. And minutes later it's happening again. The what's good for the goose is good for the gander method when it comes to discipline. It can cause a lot of resentment among siblings. I'm the oldest out of 5, and if one of us got in trouble then all of us got in trouble. My parents believed that by doing this, we would try harder to stay out of trouble, so we wouldn't get our siblings punished also. It caused a lot of resentment among us, especially towards my middle brother who had ADHD. He tried so hard to stay out of trouble, but he was almost consistently doing something stupid. There was a month where we didn't talk to him because he got our Nintendo 64 taken away. I ended it when he started to cry one night because he believed we didn't love him anymore. I never understood the mindset behind this kind of punishment. All it says to me is that there's no point in being good because I'm just going to get punished for someone else's actions anyway. I had a teacher who did this all the time, and I was well behaved until she started enacting this idiotic punishment. You're trying to get the kids to police their own. But they are kids. They aren't competent enough to manage that. Belittling their problems. I'm 26 and my mother still does this. She's a teacher with a martyr complex, so she has the hardest, most unappreciated job ever. I stopped trying to voice frustration with my own job. Because don't I know how hard teachers have it? She doesn't get a raise either. Sometimes you just wanna talk to your mom as an adult and bond about how hitty workplaces can be sometimes without it turning into a pissing match. Ag. Yeah, being a pirate is probably pretty tough. Moms just don't understand. Ignoring them. I worked at a daycare and there was a little boy who told us how he used to play underneath the deck. And once he walked out of his house and to the ice cream shop across a busy 6-lane road. He was so sweet, but didn't quite know how to interact with anyone. Because he was just alone at home. I have a baby now, and I get so sad if I leave him to play by himself for more than 5 minutes. I couldn't imagine that little boy not knowing what that kind of love is like. I left that job before anything was done. But a girl I became friends with said eventually CPS was called. I hope he gets to be the kid he deserves to be. Eater. A lot of people are saying kids entertaining themselves is also a good thing. And I definitely agree. By ignoring, I don't mean giving them space to play alone. I mean neglecting them. Overlooking their wants and needs because you couldn't be bothered. When I was learning to drive I nearly flattened a kid with my dad's van when he rode out into the road. Parents, watch your ducking kids. Thankfully I was so paranoid and cautious as a new driver that I'd seen the kid a long way back and was already driving slowly because I could sense he was about to do something stupid. Sometimes you just know. I can't count the number of times now I've pointed at a car/pedestrian and told my passenger she's about to step out into the road or he's going to pull in front of me etc. And been right. Telling your child that nothing is wrong with them. Their problems are all in their head. And to suck it up. This is how mental health issues go undiagnosed. I spent over 20 years thinking that it was normal to feel the way I felt and that I just needed to suck it up until my wife started prying into my issues and helped me realize that what I was experiencing was not normal whatsoever. There are situations where the child may be overdramatic or embellishing things. But if they are persistent about an issue or exhibit odd behavior on a consistent basis, it cannot be ignored. Oh my gosh. Yes. You're a teenager. You don't have anything to be depressed about. Facepalm. It's like looking back in time. I'd scratch my arms until they bled, and my parents looked the other way and said you're just dramatic. All kids are.